The unfinished build for the SpongeBob Parodies version 4 just dropped, and in this video I want to explain all the characters that actually pop up in the mod and give you the references that they actually come from, and then I want to go over all the versions of SpongeBob that we've seen in these parodies so far. Most of these are gag characters, but some of them are kind of creepy, so just a fair warning. Now, the first character that we see in this mod is actually from The Simpsons, and it's from an episode specifically called Yellow Subterfuge. Now, in this episode, we see that Krusty the Clown is actually declining in his viewer base, so he asks Lisa how he can actually get some help. Now, what she tells him to do is actually sell the rights to his show to some type of foreign entity, saying that even SpongeBob did it. And this is where we actually get the parody. So we actually get to see on Lisa's tablet that there is now an Italian parody version of SpongeBob SquarePants. Now I'm gonna butcher this name, but forgive me, I don't speak Italian, but I think it was called Spugna Roberto Colorati Pantalani. And in the show, the parody version of SpongeBob gives Squidward a gift for his birthday, and the gift is basically a landmine from World War II, and this is why we see Squidward literally holding that little mine that says TNT on it in the mod. And even though Squidward is trying to reject the gift, while they're actually talking and arguing, some type of little seahorse comes and lands on the landmine button, and it actually detonates, blowing both of them up. Now, they don't actually show the explosion in the Friday Night Funkin' mod, but that could be because it's an unfinished build, or because maybe it's just too gruesome to actually show, because in the actual animation it was a little gross, so I guess it could get people in trouble if they showed it. The next version of SpongeBob is actually from a PS4 Little Big Planet game. Now, some of you may remember this because there was a promotion all over Twitter and in the PlayStation Store basically trying to sell this pack, and there were a couple other ones that went along with this as well. But you basically got to play Little Big Planet, but with SpongeBob's heads, and I think some of the other characters also had SpongeBob skins as well. It was pretty popular at the time because I remember quite a few YouTubers actually doing a full playthrough of the game. The next version of SpongeBob is called Cave SpongeBob, and this one is from an old animation that basically was like a derpy version of SpongeBob that goes into a cave, and it looks like it's inhabited by some type of giant eel or some type of giant sea snake. I'll put the original animation here just so you can take a peek. It is super weird. Now, one thing that I like that they did here as well is that they added a custom version of Boyfriend into this song, which I love that people are starting to do, because looking at the same Boyfriend sprite can get boring at times. But I don't have any information as to why Boyfriend looks so demonic as well. The next version of SpongeBob on our list is called Sponge Wow, and he's actually from a commercial from a Cartoon Network series called Mad. It was basically like a parody of the Sham Wow, where you know that rag where you could basically clean up anything, but instead of using the towel, they were actually using SpongeBob. They basically trick him into coming on the show and then take advantage of him, making him clean up a bunch of messes. And if he was a regular sponge, obviously that wouldn't be a big deal, but if you're a sentient being and somebody's just scrubbing you on a bunch of messes, that's kind of sad. Fun fact here is that this was considered one of the best Mad ads in the entire series, so people actually really like this one. Next, we see a version of Squidward pop up in the mod, and this version of Squidward is from a video called Squidward Needs Some Beefaroni, and that's from a YouTube channel called Uncle Al. And basically, it was just a little parody video where Squidward was really fiending some Chef Boyardee. So he basically told Mr. Krabs that he needed to go on break in order to get some because he was starving. Mr. Krabs goes on this whole rant about how he has a beef with Chef Boyardee and that he wouldn't allow it. But Squidward basically ignores that. He gets like a whole kitchen full of Chef Boyardee. I think the creator obviously just made this for fun and to be a goof, and I don't think he thought that it was actually going to get over 1 million views when he made it. It went absolutely crazy on YouTube. This next version of SpongeBob is pretty dark. It's from a YouTube video called Lost Dark SpongeBob Animatic Found. And basically this parody takes place in a universe where SpongeBob and Patrick adopted a little clam baby together. And I'm pretty sure it's based off a SpongeBob episode where SpongeBob finds a little clam and he ends up taking care of it until he releases it back into the wild. But in this actual parody, SpongeBob kind of takes the role of the mother while Patrick takes the role of the father. So he's not really at home. He's not really helping SpongeBob take care of the baby because he said like, hey, I have to go to work. And when SpongeBob questions Patrick about his behavior, Patrick basically gets violent, even striking SpongeBob in the eye. In the animation, SpongeBob basically decides that he doesn't want to be with Patrick because he's abusive verbally and physically, so he leaves and he actually goes to Squidward for help. Now, once Patrick realizes that SpongeBob is really gone, he gets angry and he goes after him. The next series of events are basically Patrick trying to punish SpongeBob for running away, so he goes to Squidward's house, he knocks him out, and then he basically plays a game of hide and seek with SpongeBob. But the little clam baby starts to cry and it gives away SpongeBob's position, and Patrick finds SpongeBob hiding on the roof. Luckily, Squidward is able to hit him over the head with his clarinet and make him fall off the roof. But the bad part here is that Patrick still ends up surviving and he actually gets away. So the animation ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger where we don't know where Patrick is, but we know that he is extremely violent and he wants to go and he wants to hurt SpongeBob again. Definitely one of the darker ones that I've seen so far. Now, since a few of these characters are still being fleshed out in this mod, I want to talk about some other characters that have popped up as parodies of SpongeBob. The first character that we're going to start off with is a SpongeBob called Your Boy Sponge. Now, some of you might recognize this name from YouTube because the actual YouTube channel that produces these videos is called Your Boy Sponge. And what we basically see in these videos is SpongeBob rapping, which low-key is actually kind of fire. Now, the content of the songs may vary, like some of them may deal with like gold diggers and why you should stay away from them, while others might just be him rapping about certain parts of his life or doing parodies. All in all, it's some pretty interesting content. It's only been around for about 8 months. Next up on our list, we have SpongeQuan, and just like Your Boy Sponge, he also comes from YouTube. SpongeQuan has a whole series created by a person that has a name similar to Nickelodeon. I'll put it up here. And the episodes basically just shows the life of SpongeBob if he was black, basically. The series is pretty light humored and it's actually pretty funny. Next up on our list is going to be Bounce House SpongeBob, and this one right here looks super creepy, but I think it's actually based off real life inflatable images of SpongeBob. As you can see in this image here, there are inflatable SpongeBobs that actually have the mouth open like that, look creepy, and there's even short videos on YouTube where you can see people actually renting these bounce houses and their kids looking like they're getting devoured by them. I know it's supposed to be cute, but it's actually really creepy. Next up on our list is going to be Ama Squidward, and this one right here is kind of weird because the actual video that it comes from was in Indonesian, so it was kind of hard to pick up everything that was going on, but this is what I understand. So apparently SpongeBob and Patrick want the right to be able to watch whatever naughty content that they want and do whatever they want with that content. Squidward is upset because he feels like they are doing something that is wrong and that is foul, and he wants them to repent for their sins. This is why in the original animation we see Squidward stomping on and breaking all these little anime girl characters, and also chasing Patrick and SpongeBob into their home, begging them to repent. The next characters on our list are Bobby and Bobo, and they're basically knockoff versions of Patrick and SpongeBob, and apparently it was made in Iran or at least somewhere in the Middle East back in 2018. Now, I assume that the developers here made a knockoff version of Skid and Pump to kind of go with the aesthetic of the knockoff version of SpongeBob and Patrick, but other than that, there isn't a whole lot of information about this particular tune. The next parody is called We Gotta Get SpongeBob Back, and this one is actually a fan-made episode by a YouTuber named Joe. And as the name suggests, in this episode, SpongeBob actually disappears and Squidward doesn't know why, but he knows that he needs to find him. Now, what's interesting about this is that Squidward initially seems to be okay with SpongeBob missing, but then all of a sudden he just starts to panic and knows that he needs to find SpongeBob. In animation, we actually see him run to a 7-Eleven where he punches the cashier and tells him to give him all the money in the cash register while wielding a pistol. If you look in the Friday Night Funkin' mod, you can actually see him holding a pistol in his hand, even though in the mod it kind of looks like a vape or a cigarette or something. Next, we see Squidward steal an ambulance and go around Bikini Bottom, basically getting on the microphone and telling everybody that we need to find SpongeBob. He even manages to get Sandy, Mr. Krabs, and Patrick to help him in this adventure. And when they go to SpongeBob's house to actually find him, they see a blanket is covering what seems to look like SpongeBob's body, but when they take the blanket off, it reveals a portal in the floor. This portal teleports them to a place called Bikini Atoll, where funny enough, Mr. Krabs tells Squidward not to look back, and of course Squidward looks back. And this causes Sandy, Mr. Krabs, and Patrick to be turned into sand statues where they immediately are blown away. Squidward starts to freak out at this point, and this is where we're introduced to these two black floating spears that seem to be having water pouring out of them. And then they turn into eyes of a giant crying SpongeBob, and that's actually what we see here in the mod. SpongeBob then picks up a giant spatula and goes after Squidward. Eventually, SpongeBob catches Squidward and he pins him down with the spatula, basically burning him just like a Krabby Patty. Some time passes and Squidward is back at the Krusty Krab again, and he's demanding a Krabby Patty for a customer. This is when he realizes that the Krabby Patty is actually sitting at the server window, but the customer has already left. He puts the burger down on the floor for rats to enjoy, and this is where we actually see Plankton come. Plankton opens up the Krabby Patty to see if he can figure out what the secret formula is, but what he actually sees is Squidward's face. This is when Plankton takes a thumbtack and literally stabs himself in the eye, unaliving himself. And this is how this video ends. Now, some people like to speculate that this was all just a dream that Squidward was having, but regardless, it is definitely a weird parody. The next character on our list is going to be SpongeBob Sick Pants, and this character actually originated on Newgrounds. And the series is basically focused on SpongeBob and Patrick's life. However, the videos seem to be trying to be as crude as possible. The videos have a lot of hidden phallic-shaped objects. We can even see that in the Friday Night Funkin' mod in Boyfriend's Down pose. If you know, you know. There's also a lot of adult themed content and just gore and vomiting for some reason. In the episode that I was watching, we get to see sharks actually eat some of the fish in Bikini Bottom, and also Patrick and SpongeBob. We get to see Sandy actually overdoses, it seems. And SpongeBob literally attacks another patron walking down the streets and just consumes him right there. Now, there's also some backstory as to why boyfriend and girlfriend are down here and how they're able to breathe underwater, but it is super weird, so buckle up. So basically, one day boyfriend and girlfriend was at the beach, and boyfriend goes into the water even though he can't swim. Now, I suppose that he assumed that girlfriend was going to save him if he got into trouble, but it turns out that girlfriend's actually a scumbag in this mod, and she wanted boyfriend to die the whole time, so she allowed him to drown. The reason that she lets him drown is because she found a new boyfriend that she thought would be better than boyfriend. Now, funny enough, when boyfriend gets to the bottom of the ocean, he actually finds some radioactive waste that transforms him into this version of himself called Sick Boyfriend. And because of this toxin, apparently now he's able to swim and also breathe underwater. Now, since he's very angry with girlfriend and how she did him, he goes back to the surface and he waits for her to be sitting in her bed reading, and he attacks her. He basically bops her over the head with his microphone, which is why in the mod you can see that it's broken and that it has blood stains on it. And he basically bops her until she is no longer living. Boyfriend then takes her down to the ocean, back to the toxic waste that basically gave him his abilities, and it turns girlfriend into this zombie-like creature. This parody is definitely one of the darkest and grossest ones on this list. The next parody on our list is going to be Bob Sponge, and this one is interesting because it shows Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob having a discussion where it seems like Mr. Krabs is trying to get SpongeBob to do something that involves him wearing a dress and a bunch of makeup. And SpongeBob makes it clear that he's not comfortable with this because it seems to be some type of trafficking. And then from there, it seems like Mr. Krabs just goes on a little mini rampage, because when Patrick walks into the animation, Mr. Krabs literally chops off his head. And then we see Plankton walks in and Mr. Krabs literally eats him. And then out of nowhere, we see that he's wearing Squidward's face. In the actual Friday Night Funkin' mod, we see that Squidward's face is actually replaced with Boyfriend, which implies that in this mod, Mr. Krabs takes out Boyfriend. Don't ask me why Girlfriend seems so peaceful about this. I guess the one good thing about this animation is at the end, Mr. Krabs is arrested. The next parody that we have on our list is called SpongeBob's Revenge, and this one is interesting because it deals with Patrick basically being rejected by SpongeBob. Patrick calls up SpongeBob to see if he wants to go jellyfishing, and SpongeBob basically tells Patrick to go to hell because he's busy. Now, Patrick doesn't like this, so he decides that he's going to unalive SpongeBob, and he even recruits Squidward to help him do it. But when they get to his house, they actually get into a fight about who gets to shoot him first, and I mean literally a fight. They start to slap each other for some reason. This of course leads Patrick to unalive Squidward with a shotgun, and before he's able to go ahead and take out SpongeBob, SpongeBob pulls out a pistol and unalives Patrick. This is also why in the mod we get to see SpongeBob is wielding a gun, and a lot of people have been interested in this white glob as you get to play as in this song. And this figure is basically a reference to the chicken that pops up at the end of the animation after SpongeBob unalives Patrick. You'll also notice that the chicken figure has a mohawk just like this one, and he also has the same type of art style, meaning the stick figure legs and also the stick figure arms. The next parody on our list is going to be Pam Tree SpongeBob. The backstory for this one goes as follows. Squidward is getting ready for bed and he thinks it's going to be a peaceful night because SpongeBob and Patrick are supposed to be out camping. Squidward soon learns that SpongeBob and Patrick are camping, but they're doing it right outside SpongeBob's house, meaning that he can hear everything they're saying and they are being super loud. Squidward goes out to see what the two of them are doing, and he ends up actually joining them on their camping trip. Now, SpongeBob and Patrick starts to sing, and Squidward wants to show them what real music is, so of course he starts to play his clarinet. SpongeBob basically tells him that he can't play that out here because he'll attract sea bears. Squidward wants to prove SpongeBob wrong, so of course he plays his clarinet even louder. And that's when the sea bear, aka Santiago, rises from the ground and consumes Squidward. The animation ends with Squidward playing his clarinet in this black void. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Pam Tree's videos, you probably don't know who Santiago is. It's basically just one of the main people that appears in a lot of his videos. He's supposed to be like the main villain, and he has this ability to cross over to multiple dimensions and interact with people. And it seems that SpongeBob characters are usually his favorite victims, but I wouldn't take his character too seriously. I think he's just meant to be kind of funny. The next parody on our list is going to be Sponge Bong Hemp Pants. This series has 3 episodes thus far, and it's appeared on YouTube, Metacafe, and Dailymotion. Now, this version of SpongeBob is definitely a stoner, and I think that's part of the reasons why he's actually green. And he seems to spend most of his time with his best friend Hashbrick, smoking seaweed or taking sea mushrooms. In the animation, they're so addicted to taking these drugs that they'll even steal in order to pay for their addiction. And it seems that the only other thing they really do is play video games, specifically Tony Hawk. One thing that I find interesting about this song is that for whatever reason, Boyfriend seems to be holding a needle, which implies that he is doing some much harder drugs than weed and mushrooms. But as far as I know, there's not really any backstory that goes along with that. Maybe the developer just wanted to show that Boyfriend was also a drug addict, just like this version of SpongeBob. The next parody had a lot of controversy around it because even though it did garner a lot of views when it was posted, a lot of people felt that it was racist, and even the original creators have kind of addressed it. This SpongeBob is called SpongeBob in China, and while they did make it with the eyes and a stereotypical accent, they did do it with a good purpose at heart. This parody was basically made in order to address issues that were happening in China that revolved around censorship, labor laws, and American consumerism. The original video basically went viral, garnering around 80 million views. The video actually got so popular that the Chinese government demanded that Boom Chicago, who are the creators of the animation, take the video down. And of course, Boom Chicago declined this, saying that it was their own freedom and their right to be able to make these animations and to get this message out there. This next parody is actually Robot Chicken SpongeBob, and this one is interesting because this is when SpongeBob finally figures out how Krabby Patties are made, and more importantly, what's actually in the Krabby Patties. Now in the actual animation, SpongeBob comes out with a whole carton full of crab pieces, and SpongeBob is upset with Mr. Krabs because Mr. Krabs is basically making these people eat their own kind. And not only do we figure out what the Krabby Patties are made of, but we realize that he's using real tuna in a tuna salad, and we see that Squidward is in the background of this animation eating calamari, and he figures out that that is made of squid. This is basically a super dark parody that deals with cannibalism. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video on the screen, subscribe today to become a member of the Ors Force, and we'll see you tomorrow with another one. Peace, peace.